Were you expecting a lot of people to come today or no?
I mean, in registration we had about maybe, I want to say 10 registrants. But that's usually the case, and then people show up. So we're live here. How do I end this one? Or delete this one?
Go to old, where you can see old.
Right here. And then just delete it like that.
Yeah.
Wait, follow that way. So this one that's live right now, I should be able to see it from here, right?
I think so. You're not starting right now.
Well, we have a few people, I guess 2 or 3 attending probably. But do you need?
No, I'm asking. I just want to go to the mailbox and just pick up some mail.
Yeah, just like
Just
in
two.
2 more answers. Zain, how come when you finish there, I don't see it here on our videos? Maybe I can. Or will it be on the left? Because I think we might need to end that one. Do we have any brothers that are the new link?
Okay, we're live again.
Huh?
We're live again.
Okay, there we go. So tell him it should be working now. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa wala. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I know it's very lonely at the moment, but inshallah, as everybody starts rolling in a little bit later, we'll have a crowd, bi'idhnillah. I want to welcome you all to DUS Youth Shoulder-to-Shoulder, with this month's theme being Family Matters. I'm joined by our leader, Sheikh Safi Khan. He's going to be fielding all of your questions and all of the issues that are brought up and lead this discussion. Once again, the purpose of Shoulder to Shoulder, just as a reminder, it's not just Q&A, it's meant to be discussion show. So I would like, inshallah, it's not mandatory, but I would like for you all to have a chance to speak up. We have a hot mic here, so if anyone would like to speak up on that or would like to answer a specific question, you can do it through that. There is also, we make use of Slido. If you go to your browser on your phone and type in sli.do, it takes you to a anonymous question submission form where you can submit questions, and I see them right here on my device, and that way I can direct it to Sheikh Safi so that they can be answered. Please make use of that. If anybody is watching via YouTube, please do go to that. It's sli.do. It's going to ask you for a hashtag code, so you put in DUS Youth, with DUS being caps. Once you put that in, it should let you in, and then you can submit questions. And as you're submitting questions, everyone else, you should be able to see other people's questions. Once again, it's anonymous. If you want to put your name, you can. But one thing that I would like to recommend is that if you see a question that somebody else submitted that you really like, there's a like button for that question. That way I know which questions to prioritize. So if you can hit those likes, inshallah, so that's both for those who are here in person and those who are joining us via YouTube. So you can submit questions that way. I do see, mashallah, 6 people watching via YouTube. The theme of this month's Shoulder to Shoulder is Family Matters. So we want to answer all questions as it relates to family. You know, various issues that come up in family life. If you want to have clarification on what the Quran and Sunnah tells us to do and how to deal with such situations, this is the time to ask those questions. And no question, I would say, really is off limits. Anything that is really on your mind, your own situations that you've encountered in your own family life, or those that you know, family and friends who have encountered certain issues, you can bring them up so that Bidnillah Sheikh Safi can address it. I want to give Sheikh Safi, I'll give you a minute or two just to open up, inshallah, with the topic, and then I'll start with the questions that were submitted in the registration.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulih al-Kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een wa ba'd. Brothers and sisters, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, I guess as we begin to talk, perhaps the issues will come up and then we'll try to address them more directly and specifically. But in general, developing a strong family in Islam is a priority. It is next only to worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As a matter of fact, a lot of the ulama, the scholars, they consider it as part of the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the reason this is so critical, brothers and sisters, is because if we don't have family, we don't have community. If we don't have community, we don't have ummah. And that's a direct failure, basically. So the family is an absolute critical point, and to such a degree that you find that our going to Jannah, our deeds, whether they're accepted or not, our life expectancy, how long we live, is and how much we make in life, all that is dependent on our family relations, believe it or not. And perhaps these topics will come up later and we'll talk about it. The person who cuts off his relationships does not go to paradise. And what is most dangerous is that if you connect with your family, then Allah connects with you. And if you disconnect with your family, then Allah disconnects with you. So, I mean, it's pretty horrifying if you think about it. So the family, there's a lot of concentration, focus in Islam on building family. So inshallah, as we begin to talk more, hopefully some of these points will come out, inshallah. This is just a general overview, inshallah.
So I'll start with the first question. Once again, we are going to end today's event at 7. We'd like to make time for preparing for Salat al-Maghrib. Another reminder is that we have for attendees here, there's pizza outside on both the sister and brother's side. So at one point, maybe in the next 30 minutes, we'll take a short 5-minute break so you can enjoy that. There's pizza and soda.
Is it on the sister side?
Yeah, on the sister side and on the brother side, on both entrances here. Also, if you haven't registered, even for those watching online, please do register so that you can get future updates through your email. Also follow us on Instagram. That's where we post most of our upcoming flyers and share important information on our stories. But moving into the questions, so the first question here, the question is it true that refusing to forgive someone, particularly a family member or a friend, is never an option because Allah is most forgiving and we should be as well? Someone on YouTube mentioned this. Is this true?
Is it true that it's not an option?
That it is not an option.
That not forgiving. Right?
Not forgiving, yeah.
For us as Muslims, brothers and sisters, we really thrive and survive on forgiveness. Forgiveness is the reason, whoever said it on the internet, the reason it's said in that emphatic form that it's not an option for us not to forgive is because there are strong indications in the Quran and in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ which point to the fact that it's important to forgive, because if we don't, then we're hurting and harming ourselves. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Fussilat, He says that وَجَزَاءُ سَيِّئَةٍ سَيِّئَةٌ مِثْلُهَا, that the reward for doing, or the penalty for doing something bad is something bad in return. Allah mentions 3 different degrees here. فَمَنْ عَفَى وَأَصْلَحَ فَأَجْرُهُ عَلَى اللَّهِ. So whoever forgives and does something good in return, their reward is with Allah. إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الظَّالِمِينَ. And surely Allah does not like those who do wrong. So there are 3 stages that are mentioned here in terms of forgiveness. If somebody does something bad to you, then either you can get the revenge, you get the revenge by doing something equally as bad, or you can go overboard and say, okay, he did this to me, I'm going to give him double of what he did to me. So that would be zulm, because you're doing more than what he did to you. But the 3rd stage, and which is the best stage, is because the second one, that where you seek revenge and you go over, you do more than what the other person did to you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الظَّالِمِينَ. Allah does not like the wrongdoers, because you're going overboard. But when you forgive the person, that's much better. But in addition to that, you even do something good about it. Meaning that you give a gift to that person to try to make them feel better, or even though they did the harm to you, you try to make the relationship a good relationship. You might take them out for lunch, you might take them out for dinner, you might do something special for them. That's the best thing that you can do. And so yeah, I mean, in a way, forgiveness, not forgiving somebody is definitely not an option for us. Ramadan is coming up, and this month of Ramadan is a critical month for us to forgive. Remember Aisha radiallahu anha, she asked Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam on the Laylatul Qadr, tell me the dua that I can make on Laylatul Qadr. Now Laylatul Qadr, as you know, if you hit that night, it's worth 1,000 months of worship, more than 81 years or 83 years of worship. So she asked him, what dua should I make? Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam could have told her so many different things, but he told her one particular thing. He said that, say this dua as often as you can that night. Allahumma innaka afuun tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anni. Three things. Oh Allah, you are the forgiving, the most forgiving, and you love forgiveness, and so forgive me. So forgive me. So now you begin to think about this in relation to the question that was asked, that how about, forgiving other people? Is that an option or not? Not forgiving, is that an option? And when you take a look at this dua, you begin to see that how it is never an option. Why? Because Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said that, Ramadan is going to come. And he said, remember, Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is rahmatul lil alameen. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, in Surah 21, ayah 107, that وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. We did not send you except a mercy to all the worlds. Right? So this رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ, a mercy to the world, look at what he says. He says, رَغِمَ أَنْفُ رَجُلٍ دَخَلَ عَلَيْهِ رَمَضَانَ ثُمَّ انْسَلَخَ قَبْلَ أَنْ يُغْفَرَ لَهُ. He said that may Allah disgrace that person, may Allah humiliate that person, upon whom Ramadan comes and then leaves, and that person has not been forgiven. That person has not been forgiven. So why is this important? Because while we're looking for our forgiveness, but there's one small detail. You see, Allah will forgive us if we forgive others. Allah will forgive us if we forgive other people. And that's why in a hadith of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, Irhamu turhamu. Be nice and merciful and compassionate to others, and you will be shown mercy too. Show mercy to others, and you will be shown mercy too. Okay? Then he goes on and he says, Waghfiru yughfar lakum. So forgive others, and you will see forgiveness, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this world and in the hereafter. And then you'll see that. And then he went on and he said, وَيْلٌ لِأَقْمَاعِ الْقَوْلِ. Woe, woe is a way of like reprimanding somebody. He's saying, woe be to the one who who says something that they don't practice. They don't practice what they preach. وَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصِرِّينَ الَّذِينَ يُصِرُّونَ عَلَى مَا فَعَلُوا وَهُمْ يَعْلَمُونَ. And woe be to those people who insist on doing the wrong thing, though that they know that they're doing the wrong thing. So they know they should forgive, but they insist on having an ego and not forgiving other people. So this is, and there are many ahadith of this nature, that talk about this. Like in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah 24, Surah An-Nur, ayah 22, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, وَلْيَعْفُوا وَلْيَصْفَحُوا. Let the Muslims, they should pardon people, they should overlook, they should forgive people. أَلَا تُحِبُّونَ أَن يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. Wouldn't you love Allah to forgive you? In other words, when you forgive others, Allah will forgive you. وَاللَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Surely Allah is the most forgiving and the most merciful. So this is inshallah, that's correct. That is not an option not to forgive. In our world today, so many people say that, well, I'll forgive, but I won't forget. So that means you really haven't forgiven. Imagine if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was to say that to us. We would be doomed. So if we forgive people, then Allah will forgive us.
So then it is true, just to kind of move
right.
the conversation forward. And please feel free to chime in. And we have a mic here if you do want to be heard, inshallah. So it is true then, because you made one point that I wanted to, ask further on that. Allah is Ar-Rahman, Al-Ghafur, Al-Afu, Ar-Rahim, these qualities of Allah, these sifat. that it's also important for us as Muslims to embody those, even though these are his characteristics, his sifat.
Yeah, but this is one of the reasons that Allah loves us when we embody those qualities in our lives. That just like He's the most forgiving, we obviously don't compare to Allah. But if we take on those qualities in our lives, being merciful, being beneficent, being loving, being forgiving, pardoning people, Allah loves us for that. If we do those things.
Does anyone want to ask a follow-up question to this? So, go ahead.
But some people might say that it's their choice, it's their right to see if they can forgive you or not. How should we respond to such people?
Okay, so the question is that some people might say that, look, it's their choice whether they forgive or they don't. That's true. It is just like it's a choice to go to Jannah or Jahannam. It's a choice. You're right, you're absolutely right. But the smart person would forgive because they know that so much is banking on that for them to forgive. That because often when we don't forgive, we become so sensitive to our own hurt. That how dare anybody hurt me? And if somebody did hurt me, they're going to remember the rest of their life. They shouldn't have ever touched me. But the issue is that we're supposed to humble ourselves as Muslims. That if somebody does hurt us, okay, maybe that's because of one of my sins. Maybe I missed Fajr this morning. That's why this happened. This person was mean to me. Or this is why I got into a car accident, a fender bender. So the thing is that this narcissistic culture that we're living in today, that I, me, and myself, only my feelings are important. That's what, as Muslims, we have to let go of that, and we have to understand that Allah is in control. Like this person who hurt me could not have hurt me if Allah did not decree it, but Allah let it happen. So if Allah let it happen, that means that there's a lesson in this. I better think about it rather than pointing the finger. I better look in the mirror. So that's so yeah, you're right. Yeah, I agree with you. It's a choice. But if we are humble, we would realize that there's a billion mistakes we commit every day, and we need Allah's forgiveness, more than we need water and air. So we would, if we are smart, we would give up anything just to be forgiven by Allah. And on the Day of Judgment, rather than to stand 50,000 years on the plane of resurrection or reckoning, on the Day of Judgment, that Allah forgive us and we go straight to Jannah. So.
Would anyone else like to ask a follow-up question to this one before we move on to the next one? No? Okay. Just again, a reminder, some of you just recently, so there is an anonymous question submission form. If you open up your browser and you type in sli.do, slide out, and then put in the code DUS Youth with DUS being all caps, you can anonymously submit questions. I'd actually like for everyone to sign into that, because even if you're not submitting questions, you can see other people's questions that are being submitted. I see them here. And then I'm encouraging you there's a function where you can like a question. So the questions that get the most likes on the slide, on which we're going to get to very soon, the ones that get more likes, I'll prioritize so that those get answered soon, as opposed to just first come, first serve.
If I could just say one more sentence on this thing about forgiveness. Brothers and sisters, the best of this ummah, the greatest scholars, men and women, on their deathbeds, the biggest question they would have? The biggest question is not that they're going to Jannah, but the biggest question that they would have, will Allah forgive me? Can you imagine all the good deeds that they did, but yet they were worried whether Allah will forgive them or not? SubhanAllah. These are people, giants of the ummah, who would spend most of their night in salah and forgiveness. Most of their night. And yet they were wondering if they would be forgiven by Allah. And that's why you see them, and if you read their life histories, if somebody did something mean to them, they would immediately forgive, because they didn't want to be in the position on the Day of Judgment that they didn't forgive someone, and because of that, Allah won't forgive them.
There's a question.
So I just had a quick question. So what about those sins we may have committed, but we've forgotten ask forgiveness for those sins? What is that, our position on the Day of Judgment regarding those sins that we committed but we didn't ask for forgiveness for them?
Yeah, I mean, the idea is that if we forget about those sins and if we keep on doing the extra deeds and asking Allah, in general we ask Allah and make the different du'as that, oh Allah, even if I forgot, forgive me for those sins, then Allah will forgive. Allah is very loving, very forgiving. He will forgive us as long as we're sincere. And then all the different good deeds that you do, and if there happen, if this is about major sins, but if for the major sins, you just do a tawbah for all, you can tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you're there at night at the tahajjud, that Ya Allah, all the major sins that I did, I tubtu ilayk, I repent to you and forgive me for all those sins, the ones I remember and the ones I don't remember, and so on. That's for the major sins. For the minor sins, like Allah knows that we're going to forget. So the minor sins, because Allah is so loving, so merciful, so kind, so gentle, that from one salah to the next salah, any minor sins that you did, they're forgiven. From one Friday to the next, any minor sins that you did, they're forgiven. One Ramadan to the next, any minor sins that you did are all forgiven. And there's so many other opportunities for forgiveness. Like when on the Ashura day, and then in Muharram also when you fast on. So you forget for the previous year and the coming year. You haven't even done stuff in the coming year, but Allah knows that you were going to do stuff, so Allah He forgives you. I mean, that's unheard of. So I mean, answer to your question, that if you are sincere and you truly ask Allah for forgiveness, Allah will forgive you. Allah will forgive you. Because the ayah from Surah Al-Zumar, Surah 39, ayah 55, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that قُلْ يَا عِبَادِيَ الَّذِينَ أَسْرَفُوا عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ لَا تَقْنَطُوا مِنْ رَحْمَةِ اللَّهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ جَمِيعًا. That my servants who have transgressed all bounds, don't give up in the mercy of Allah. Allah forgives all sins. Every sin, Allah will forgive it. إِنَّهُ هُوَ الْغَفُورُ الرَّحِيمُ. Surely Allah is the most forgiving and merciful. So inshallah, I hope that makes sense.
So the next question we have here, this was also submitted by one of the registrants. Living in a Western society where women and men go to university together and work in a professional environment together on a regular basis, what are the bounds of gender interaction, and what if, I didn't understand the second half, and what if we don't even approach near? What is the behavior of a woman with a non-mahram man and vice versa?
So there are three questions, right?
So what are the bounds of gender interaction?
Yeah, even if you don't approach somebody
even if you don't
nearby.
approach somebody nearby. And then what is the behavior of a woman with a non-mahram man and vice versa?
Okay. In general, brothers and sisters, the men and the women, they should be separate. They shouldn't be together. I mean, before we get to the anomaly, let's take a look at what it's supposed to be like. Then we'll get to the deviation from that. So, in a Muslim society, the idea is for the men and the women to be separate, and the idea is to protect both, to protect them, and to protect both from shaitan, really, to protect the men from thinking about women in a vile way, in a way that is not right, and from the women to think about the men, in a vile way, in a wrong way. So the idea is for the women to be comfortable in each other's company and the men to be comfortable in each other's company. Okay. So this is the thing about the separation, that the men and the women should be separated. And the Quran talks about this idea that how if you approach a woman then from behind min wara'i hijab, from behind a barrier, that you should talk to the women and so on, whether it's the hijab or a barrier or something. And then of course, all of you know about the rulings as far as ghadd al-basar, it's generally translated as lower your gaze, but actually ghadd al-basar means to keep your gaze away, from the women from the men and the men from the women. So the idea is to, and so therefore, as Muslims, in the West, in the culture that we've grown up in, especially in the corporate culture, they say that, look, when you talk to someone, you have to look directly in their eyes. If you don't, then you're acting suspicious. People think that you're suspicious. But for us as Muslims, it's the opposite, So this is what we call al-asl. And therefore, like in Surah 49, I think it's ayat 13, Surah Al-Hujurat, that's the community surah, you can say. In this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, says, لا يسخر قوم من قوم عسى أن يكونوا خيرا منهم. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لا يسخر نساء من نساء عسى أن يكون خيرا منهن. That, which means that don't let a group of men ridicule another group of men thinking that they're better than them, and don't let a group of women ridicule another group of women thinking that they're better than them. So the ulama, they take this ayah to say that the reason they're both addressed separately here is because the men have their area and the women have their area. So they should be separated. And then, in Surah Al-Ahzab, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the fact that how the women, when they address the men, they should not talk flirtatiously. It should always be business, It should be done in a serious way. Okay, so that's the way that the situation should be. And I'll tell you why I discussed this first in just a second. So now let's go to the anomaly, the aberration, and that's the American, the Western workplace. The men and women are together. And this, even in the West, brothers and sisters, it didn't used to be like that. The men used to be separate and the women used to be separate, like 200-300 years ago, But because of that whole liberal culture and the secular culture, which was, pushed forward by the, Darwinism and all of that, and Marxism and so on, the men and the women began to come in the same workplace. And as they began to come in the same workplace, a lot of issues began to come forward. A lot of issues began to come to the forefront, okay? Basically, this was a scheme to get the woman out of the home, Okay, and that's another topic in itself, but I'm just sharing that, the reasoning behind all of this. And the minute the woman left the home, the children suffered. So now there's no person to take care of them at home, to bring them up with the right tarbiyah, with the right upbringing, the righteous upbringing of Islam. And now they're left to who? They're left to other babysitters who are secular. They're left to babysitters who don't espouse Islamic values in any way. They're left to the television, they're left to the internet, they're left to social media, whatever. Okay? All of that, and it produces all these problems in the children. And in the family itself. Okay? So now the interaction of the men and the women in a workplace. The reaction, if you're a Muslim working in a mixed atmosphere that there is commingling and so on, mixing, then definitely maintain your boundaries and what are those boundaries? Talk to that person. First of all, try to only deal with the women, if you can. Try to limit your conversation with the men. Let me put it this way. Try to limit your conversation with the opposite gender. So our brothers, you should try to, stay away from the women, or sisters totally, and just talk to the men, and vice versa. The sisters, you should talk just to the women, or if there are sisters involved, and not to the brothers or other men. So now the question comes up. Okay, well, wait a minute. I have a female as a Muslim man. I have a female boss, or as a Muslim woman, I have a male boss. Who Muslim or non-Muslim. So in those situations, restrict your conversation to work. Don't get into issues like, well, how are you doing today? Now, on the surface, it seems very innocent, but if the person asks you, how are you doing? At that point, the choice is that you can be nice, or you can be, you can be nice in two ways. Either tell that person that, alhamdulillah, I'm fine, or I'm fine, I'm doing okay. Or you can just very, very business-like, say everything's fine, and then move on immediately move on. So they get the idea that you're not sticking around, like this is not just an entrance into a longer conversation. This is not just fueling a longer conversation. That you say, we're fine. Don't even ask the other person, how are you? Because that just prolongs the conversation. And you're letting them know in a very, subtle way that I'm not the person that you want to talk to and have a social conversation with. You need to give them those signals from the very beginning. Now, the question is going to come up now that, well, they're going to think I'm stuck up. No, they won't, as long as you have a good relationship with all the, like, as a sister, you have a good relationship with all the other women, and as a brother, you have a good relationship with all the men who are working there. That you're nice to them, you do things for them, you speak nicely to them, you bring them gifts, you get them a lunch once in a while, at break time you get them tea or coffee or a donut, whatever. I was going to get something for myself, I got one for you also. Between sisters and sisters, or women and women, and men. So when the discussion goes on the lunch table, at work, that, because they're commingling. And so now, and they notice that the Muslim women, they don't mix if there's a mixed gathering. They'll be there with the other sisters or the other women, and the same thing with the men. They won't go onto the table where there's a mixed gathering. So now they're talking among themselves. I feel that Muslim guy is so, so stuck up. He doesn't talk to me at all. One of the women would say. And so the other men would say that, well, no, with us, he's really nice. Wow, I wish there were more people like that, So immediately they get an idea that, oh, okay, I get it. And the same thing on the sister's side. Immediately they get the idea that, oh, okay, I get it. That these Muslim girls, they only associate with women, and the Muslim boys, the gentlemen, they only associate with gentlemen, and so on. Then another issue that comes up at the workplace is that sometimes you're working on a project together. Well, the whole issue is that if you're working on a project together, you kind of have to do it. Otherwise you don't have a job. So the question comes up is that, should I look for another job? Definitely. Should I start my own business? Definitely. So you don't have to compromise on these issues, And then the last thing that, and I'm sure there are many other things, but I'm just trying to think of the work environment, because I myself, before we started this institution, this community of Dar-us-Salaam, I used to work in a non-Muslim atmosphere, obviously, for years, in different venues. So another thing that comes up at a workplace is when people are going, they're going to celebrate something. Something great happened at work, and they're saying, come on, let's all go. We'll go to this restaurant, and we'll go to that restaurant, and so on. And all of us are gonna have dinner together tonight. In those situations, most of the time that that people go to those places, there's a bar. They have wine and beer and stuff. So at that point, you can just say that, well, I don't go to places where there's beer or wine, and just get out of it. And I'm telling you from experience. I've done it. My wife has done it, and people don't mind at all. People are respectful. People are very respectful. They don't mind. And like I don't know if I shared this with you before, brothers and sisters. Growing up in high school, I went to high school here. I went to school all my life here, and one thing I saw is that I even ran for SGA. We had, I think, in our class we had about 2,500 students in high school, or 3,000, something like that. And I ran for SGA, for the president, and I was running against the school Casanova, basically. That like all the girls, everybody was around him, and so on and so forth. And so I ran against him, and alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willed that I won. And people were surprised. but the reason I'm pointing that out is that, people would go together in different places, and I wouldn't go. I just wouldn't go to those things. And people thought I was stuck up, I was a prude, as they used to say. But then other people, like especially the men, the boys, because I used to participate with them, and at that time I didn't know about chess. I was in the chess club, and on the forensics team, that's like your speech type of thing, and in sports and so on. So the boys, they would say, you know, the girls would complain to the boys that is like, you know, one of the girls I remember even said that, is he normal? Does he like girls? You know? So the boys, they said, yeah, he's totally normal. You know, we like him. You know, he's totally cool. You know, and so what I'm just simply saying, sharing these things with you to say that one of the things I saw in high school and I saw in the workplace as well when I work with the non-Muslims, if there's one thing they respect, is if you stand up for what you believe in. If you stand up for what you believe in, and you're not just a monkey following everybody, whichever way they want to follow, you just follow them. You know, and because they interpret that as that you're insecure in your own identity. People want to learn from you. People want to see, well, okay, what makes you tick? Why are you different? So inshallah, so the borders are, I think I discussed that, and then what else is there?
I think you discussed all of it actually.
Right.
Because it was about how to deal with non-mahram.
Right.
And the bounds of gender interaction.
Yeah.
So I want to start actually getting to the questions that are here in the Slido. So that's why I'm not asking for any follow-up questions on this topic, because there are some really, I think, really important questions here that are even more specific.
Yeah, well, one other thing I just want to say, brothers and sisters, especially the sisters, especially the sisters. Again, I'm not trying to be hard on you guys at all, but brothers often, and brothers, forgive me for saying this, often brothers, they may misinterpret if you're being nice. You're just being nice, but they might misinterpret that as, well, she likes me, you know? And so just be careful, and it happens, and vice versa. I'm just coming from a situation now that just 2 days ago, I was talking to a brother, and he thought that the sister really liked her, but she got in touch with me, and she's saying, no, I was just being polite. That's all. I was just being nice. I didn't want to be mean. But he thought that, okay, they're going to get married and so on.
Inshallah. Once again, if you're not already, you can log in. Come closer, right? Yeah. Also, sisters, unless you're not comfortable, if you can come sit closer, that would be ideal, inshallah. I want to remind everyone to enter the Slido. That way you can start liking questions. I do see some that are liked here, but maybe I think there are new questions that are coming in. So some of them have 0 likes. So that way I can prioritize. So I'm going to start with the question here that has the most likes. How should one deal with a parent who has a short temper?
Okay, you're going to get me in trouble now. I want to be nice. Okay, how do you deal with a parent who has a short temper? First thing to remember, brothers and sisters, just in general, you don't fight fire with fire. Okay? So if they're getting upset at you for some reason, you don't fight back by getting upset at them. You always yell at me. You're always this to me, and you care about him or her more than you care about me, and yeah. So you never fight fire with fire. That's a general rule. You fight fire with water. Islamically, kindness. So even if somebody yells, like your parents are yelling at you, don't say anything back. Just be quiet. And listen to them, and when they're finished, just leave and give them some time to cool down. Once they've cooled down, then you go to them and you tell them, Mom, the reason I did it like this was because of this reason. I may be wrong. Be humble. Don't be arrogant. Don't think that you're always right. So be humble and explain to your parents whatever has to be explained. Be totally respectful. Our parents, Islamically speaking, even if they at us, we're supposed to be gentle and kind and polite and caring for them, regardless. So I would say Allah knows best that the way you deal with parents who have a short temper, first of all, watch those buttons that you never want to push, that that are going to irate your parents. Don't make them irate in any way. And if you know that this is going to turn them off, then just be careful. Sometimes your parents may be coming home from work, and then you come and tell them all the problems of the world. That's not the proper time, obviously. You know, you want to get something nice for them to eat, maybe for dad or mom, you know, something nice to eat, you know, and maybe that way they'll calm down, and then they'll talk to you once they're relaxed. So I hope that answers it.
So I want to follow up to that question, and maybe some of you have this on your mind as well, but what if you know for a fact that one of your parents, that their most common way of communicating their feelings about anything is just being upset, being disappointed. Like they make you feel as if, maybe they don't mean it, but they make you feel as if you're always a disappointment. Whatever you do is not enough. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, brothers and sisters, you know, I hate to put it this way, but this is life. You're going to meet people all the time who are going to put you down, but it hurts a lot more when it comes from the parents, obviously. So in those situations, you know, the first thing to understand is that, you know, this is why that the tahajjud is so important, that you find that communion with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And by communion, I mean, you know, that relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I don't mean that you become one with Allah. Okay, so you establish that relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made you, and Allah didn't mess up. Allah did not mess up. Certainly, you may be doing some things wrong, and they're a disappointment to your parents, but that's okay. That's okay. I'm not saying that you should not strive hard and work hard and do the things that you're supposed to be doing. But if you hear those comments, you know, don't take it personally, because Allah didn't mess up in your creation. Allah created you, and He created you a gift for this world, each and every one of you, you know. So each one and every one of you, Allah has put a special talent in you. It just has to come out. It just has to be exposed, and for the world to know. That's all. The third thing is that I would say that when your parents are calm and collected, when they're totally calm, explain to them that, Mom, you know, you're always saying, you know, or Dad, you're always saying negative things and pessimistic things, you know, and things that are as if I'm a big disappointment. And you know, Mom, that has an effect on me. That has a very bad effect on me, you know. And, you know, I wish that you could say the same thing, but in a nicer way. Now, if they get upset at that point, then obviously next time don't say it. But a lot of our parents, you know, they are caring. They're saying, they feel that this is the best way to bring up their children by being hard on them, you know. But explain to them. So that's the third thing. The fourth thing is that if you feel that you've tried all these things, then perhaps talk to somebody who you feel that your parents respect, and tell them to talk to your parents. Number 4. Number 5, try to bring them to gatherings where the topic will be on this issue: how to control your temper, how to control your anger. You know, try, you know, or ask the person who's giving the talk that just address this issue as a general question. So your parents are sitting there, and they might listen and they might understand. So although you're not telling them directly, but you're telling them indirectly. Our parents have very, you know, gracious hearts. They inshallah will listen, and when they listen, and then they will analyze their lives, and hey, you know, I think I'm being like that. So, and they may change on their own. So, and then the last thing, the most important thing, is dua at tahajjud. Dua at tahajjud. Ya Allah, help to change my parents' attitude towards me. Ya Allah, you know, make me more subservient, make me more serving of them, you know, make them proud of me, you know, things of that nature. The dua, you know, as you know, the hadith of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, إِنَّمَا يَنْصُرُ اللَّهُ هَذِهِ الْأُمَّةِ بِضَعِيفِهَا. Allah will only help this ummah by the virtue of His, Allah will only help this ummah by the virtue of His weak people. And you know, you feel weak that when your parents get so upset at you. And so he said, بِدَعْوَتِهِمْ وَصَلَاتِهِمْ وَإِخْلَاصِهِمْ. By virtue of the weak people by virtue of their du'as, number one. Number two, their salah. And number three, their sincerity, their ikhlas. Okay? So inshallah, I hope that answers it.
By the way, is it okay if someone, anyone here doesn't necessarily agree with you, Sheikh Safi? Like,
Of course.
do we have the right to react?
Of course.
Okay, so
Just
you heard
don't-
it here. If you don't agree with something, react. I'm trying to get you all
Just
to wake up
don't-
a little bit.
Just don't
Right
do
now
it
you're
to
like
babies.
yeah, no, right now I'm getting like fitya and kahf like vibes, like everybody's asleep for 300 years. Like you wake up, except for mashallah,
Okay.
Zayn and Ikram here. Ikram, go ahead.
So we know in the Quran Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to
You want to use
lower.
the mic so that everybody can hear you?
So we know in the Quran Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to lower our wings of mercy to our parents. So can you explain this concept further so we can understand how to do it?
Yeah, lowering your wings of mercy. In Surah Al-Isra is mentioned about that. وَخْفِضْ جَنَاحَكَ, lower your wings of mercy. Meaning that, you should be kind to them. You should humble yourself to them. Don't answer them back if they talk to you in a harsh way. Don't respond to that at all. Always be gentle, be nice, and so on. And if they ask you to do something that you don't feel is reasonable, do it anyway, unless it's haram, then obviously you can't do it. But in general, and even if it's haram, try to avoid it. If you know that your parents are going to get upset, if you tell them, well, mom, that's haram, I'm sorry, I'm not doing it. Don't react like that. Don't react like that. But if they ask you to do something that's haram, just, try to avoid it. And later on when they're calm, then talk to them in a nice way. But mom, I'm just afraid of Allah. Don't say that you're asking me, just talk about yourself. That mom, I'm so afraid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's punishment. This is an ayah in the Quran. This is what he's saying, or this is a hadith of the Prophet. I just can't get myself to do it. Forgive me. In a very nice and gentle and polite way.
You mentioned something like talking about, not directly saying like, oh, what you're asking me to do is haram. And there are some therapists that say that when you're trying to convey your feelings to someone, that you have a relationship with, whether it's a loved one or a spouse, that you should use a lot of, as opposed to saying you did or you are doing statements, you should use I feel statements. Like I feel like.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So is that in line with what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Would anyone else like to react to this? Salma, can you take that mic?
You have the mic?
Yeah, she does.
Oh, okay, that's for the sister. Oh, okay. We don't have two mics?
We do. We can get one more mic. Is it on? It should be green. There's a power button. If you hold it down, it should turn on. Just tap it.
You have to hold it.
Huh?
You have to hold it.
You have to hold the power button. Let me see it. Oh, there you go.
I think it's working.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
My question is that, so you said that we shouldn't respond to our parents in a bad way, however, whatever they can say. But when the parents are divorced and one of them is was really bad for the mother, or the mother was bad for the father. And when you're living with, for example, with your mom, and the dad is been really bad for many years, and even for the kids, and he wasn't there for them for forever. And then when he comes back, that's really bad for the mom, or and then should he just stop and listen to one of the parents saying bad stuff about the other parent? And because even if you try trying to advise the parent and politely, but what if like they're not listening and they keep talking like really bad about the other parent, or you know, I don't know if you got my point. But.
Yeah, I did. Often, in the fractured households, in divorced situations, the children, they suffer the most. And especially when the parents, the separated parents, they begin to talk about each other, and so on. The thing to do, there's a couple of things going on here. When you see, normally the parents, they don't want to see each other if they're divorced. Like they drop off the children, or one parent or the other one is missing, and they, now if there is a situation where both of them are there, which is rare, because usually they don't want to even be in the same home or same room or same place and so on. But if they happen to be, and you as a child, you're there, and if they begin to talk about something, try to distract them from talking about each other. Whether it means you drop some food in the kitchen and everybody rushes to it, or whether it means that you distract them and turning on the television and say, wow, look at the real nice program, or turning on a video or something that distracts them from talking bad about each other, because this is like backbiting. Even if you say something bad about someone in front of their face, this is ghiba. Even if it's in front of them, ghiba is not necessarily behind their back, but even in front of them. So you distract them in some way, or like there are different things, like for example, one of your friends can give you a call, and you have to handle some emergency or whatever, and so these are some of the things that I would personally say. And if your parents are ready to listen, then I would say that you can advise them. But if they're not ready to listen, there is no use advising them. So that's the second situation. The third situation is that your parents, like one or the other, like let's say you live with your mom, and she from time to time would just go into this whole long spiel about dad, and vice versa. If you're living with dad, or if you're with dad, let's say on the weekends you go and you visit with dad, and during the week you're with mom. And when you're with dad is saying all these things about mom. Your mom did this, your mom did that, your mom didn't do this, your mom didn't do that, and so on and so forth. So in those type of situations, the first thing to understand is that they're expressing their hurt. Each one of them is hurt very badly, and they're expressing their hurt. So now the issue is to try to share with them how to handle their hurt. How to handle their hurt, And inshallah, the first thing to have them realize is that, look, Allah, if this was not Allah's will, it wouldn't have happened. Now that it's happened, it happened because one or both of you guys, you did something that was not correct, and hence it ended up in separation, So, and there are other things, other things that you can do, actually we just, Dar-us-Salaam just came out with a book. It's called Handling Your Hurt, Choose Forgiveness. Take a look at that. Inshallah, you can get it very easily. I think there's some probably in the front there.
It's a free book.
It's a free book, yeah.
And we have it here.
Yeah.
Is it on both sides, or is it only up here by the front office?
Should be on both sides.
Are there any in the souk as well, or?
Maybe in the souk, but is Khadija here?
No, Khadija's not here.
Okay. Okay, well, Khadija's dad has a lot of their copies. Omar Smith. Yeah. So, but if you want it, inshallah, I can get it for you. Inshallah, get it also from the DCO, the donor care office. From Sister Zeenat or Sister Samira or Sister Aisha Drame. They can all get it for you, inshallah.
So I want to ask a quick question to everybody. So there's pizza and soda. I do want to give time for that. Do you all want to take a quick, just 5-minute break for that, or should we continue and then just hold for the refreshments until when we end at about 7:15? Just a quick vote. What do you all think? Stay or break? Stay? Stay? Choose. Okay, so since we're saying stay, we're going to stay. The next question is a really good one, Sheikh Safi. Just before that, who here is the eldest sibling in their family? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Awesome. I can tell you're the eldest one because your younger one is asleep, mashallah. Right in the front row. It's okay, look rest. Look. So this question is, and I really actually want the answer for this too, Sheikh Safi, because I have a lot of opinions on this. What are the rights of an older sibling over the younger sibling? And the younger sibling over the older sibling? What are the limits? And there's a lot of emojis here. MashaAllah, whoever wrote this question is very handy.
Yeah, I mean, the answer is clear Islamically, but I don't know if it's going to be popular. That's the only thing.
Popular with who?
It depends on who we address. so like, because there are responsibilities, rights and responsibilities on both sides. On when it comes to the elder siblings, they should, their position is like almost like a father, or a mother. They should take care of the younger siblings by being gentle and kind, and forgiving and tolerant and patient with the youngers. Because the hadith of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it applies to this situation as well. That ليس منا من لم يوقر كبيرنا ولم يرحم صغيرنا. That he is not from among us who does not respect his elders and is not compassionate to the younger. The younger people, they should be respectful. They should not yell back. They should not respond, as if they're just speaking to a peer. The younger people should be very respectful of the elders. If they say something, they should listen to it right away and do it. I know that's not going to be popular, but anyway, they should definitely do it right away, because that's the respect in Islam that the elders have. The young people have towards the elders. Be respectful of the elders. The younger people should respect the elders. If the elders ask them to do something, they should go ahead and do it without complaining, and without nagging in any way. But at the same time, the elders, because they're older, they should be more far-sighted. They should be more tolerant. They should be, they should deal with the situation in a very mature way, and not yell at their younger children. They should be an example for the youngers, their siblings, inshallah. So that's briefly, inshallah, that's what it would be.
Okay, so who wants to react? That's why I asked. Okay, I can go first.
Assalamualaikum. So my question was, I'm the oldest. When it comes to being an older sibling, in my situation, right now I'm currently in college. I'm just here with grade. I can't necessarily be there in person for my siblings all the time. So I know, trying to call, check on them and stuff like that is important. Islamically, what type of, accountabilities do I have over them? Like things that I might be asked about as far as when it comes to them? Or, things that I will be held accountable for in regards to that.
I mean, in terms of, accountability, nothing comes to my mind as far as if you don't do this, there's a big penalty, or the sinful thing is just that if somebody needs help, especially in your family, and you don't help them, or you just are condescending towards them, that's the sinful thing. The idea is if they need help in something, whether it's upbringing, whether it's something physical, whether it's something financial, you do it to the best of your ability. And if you don't, then at that point you might be sinful.
Thank you.
Sure.
So just to follow up on, so he did also mention that being an older sibling that's far away. So he's.
Yeah, I mean, if you're far away, obviously you do as much as you can. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ in Surah Al-Taghabun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, fear Allah as much as you are able to, as much as you can. So you do the best you can. Like for example, you're living in California, your siblings are living in New York or Maryland. then when you come back every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever, or every summer, then you bring gifts for them. You know, their favorite gifts for them. You know,
What if they don't have a job?
that's what makes it more oppressive. Even. See, I don't even have a job and I got you this gift. You owe me.
Okay, any younger siblings want to react? It's okay, you have protection from me, from your older siblings. Alright, so Isa, I'm good. I'm gonna hold you accountable. You got asked about accountability. Alright, anybody? Come on, I thought this would be like a hot one that. Go for it, once you link up. Take the mic. It should already be on, right? Let me take a look at it. Let me see.
Walaikum assalam.
Yeah. But I just want to
I didn't hear what you said the first time.
I'm the eldest of my siblings,
Okay.
and I want to know what you do with your running out of patience with them, because I have a lot of young.
You're cutting in and out.
Oh,
So you want to hold it at like a.
Oh, okay.
At a distance?
I'm the eldest, and I have my siblings are younger than me, and they're kind of, they're still in their, puberty stage and everything, and they're very, well, feisty. It is hard to keep my patience with them. Is there any way you have any advice for how I can stay patient when they become Italian or disrespectful, and what I can do to help them out?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, keep trying to be patient. As the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that وَمَنْ يَتَصَبَّرْ يُصَبِّرُهُ اللَّهُ, that whoever practices patience, like they strive and struggle to practice patience, then Allah will make them patient. Okay, and understand all the various gifts that inna Allaha ma'as sabirin. Allah is with those people who are patient. And many other, like إِنَّمَا يُوَفَّى الصَّابِرُونَ أَجْرُهُمْ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ, that the people who are patient, their reward is limitless, without accountability. So try to remember those things at first. Understand that the fruits of patience are tremendous, because as you're even if they are being feisty with you now, they notice that, look, I really tried to make her upset, but she was still calm. She was still patient. And gradually that's going to influence their own character. They're going to look up, even though they may not want to admit it, but they're going to begin to look up to you because they see an example of patience. So I would say that definitely, just keep trying to be patient, and inshallah, if you need more merits of patience, you can get in touch with me, inshallah, and try to give you more merits, or I'll try to send it to you by text message or so on. But some of them I just mentioned to you, that Allah is with you when you do that, and Allah makes you patient when you try to practice patience, and the reward for being patient is limitless. It's more than anything else. Oh yeah.
I also, if you don't mind, I wanted to add two things that are. So one, just to recap, you said one of the most powerful ways to increase our own patience is to remind ourselves of the reward of patience, right? But I believe there's also du'as for like in the Quran there's this, I forget which surah, رَبَّنَا أَفْرِغْ عَلَيْنَا صَبْرًا وَثَبِّتْ أَقْدَامَنَا وَانصُرْنَا عَلَى الْقَوْمِ الْكَافِرِينَ. Like the blessed dua that includes asking Allah for pouring on us patience. I think that's the wording, right?
Right.
So is that like a good go-to dua if we want Allah to help us with our salah?
Yeah, most definitely. That's at the end. That's the Surah Al-Baqarah at the end of the second juz.
Surah Al-Baqarah, end of the second verse.
Yeah, just 3 or 4 ayat before Ayatul Kursi.
3 or 4 ayat. And then the second thing is I heard once one of the speaker once say that when you ask Allah for more patience, He doesn't necessarily give you more patience. He gives you opportunities to be patient. Is that true, or should we?
That can also be true because sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspires you with patience, that gives you that wherewithal to stick through things. But sometimes it gives you opportunities for you to strive for it. So both can be true, inshallah.
The next question, dealing with feelings of hurt, bitter/hurtful grandparent relationships or in-law relationships, i.e., a grandparent is being harmful or hurtful to their daughter-in-law, in this case, in this example, your mother.
Yeah, I mean, in general, the general rule is to be, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Fussilat, Surah 41, ayah 34, I think it is, that good things are not equal to bad things. idfa' billati hiya ahsan, that always repels something bad with something good. فَإِذَا الَّذِي بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَهُ عَدَاوَةٌ كَأَنَّهُ وَلِيٌّ حَمِيمٌ. And then you will notice that the person between you and that person, there's enmity or hostility, that if you behave in this way, then they will become your closest friend or one of your close friends. Okay, وَمَا يُلَقَّاهَا إِلَّا الَّذِينَ صَبَرُوا, ayah 35. And the people who are patient, they will receive this blessing from Allah. وَمَا يُلَقَّاهَا إِلَّا ذُو حَظٍّ عَظِيمٍ. And the people who have this great fortune from Allah, they are the ones who will be given this. Okay, great fortune meaning that the wherewithal in this world to be patient and to do the good things, repel bad things with good things, and in the Akhirah Jannah. So this is one of the things that one should always you can practice this. And then can you read the question again?
So how do we navigate bitter/hurtful relationships? And then the example was given of the grandparent being harmful to their daughter-in-law, i.e. your mother.
Right. So first thing is to repel the bad things with the good things, bad speech and bad reactions and bad actions, with good actions. The second thing is that you try your best to be cordial and nice and polite and gentle and loving, despite their intransigence, despite their meanness, despite their cruelty. And if you feel that it's beginning to affect you now to such a degree that you're beginning to lose your own self-respect, self-esteem, your own dignity, then in that case, I would say that you try to limit the interaction until you kind of get a hold of yourself. Okay? But handling this hurt, understand also, as I was saying earlier, understand that this is something that Allah let happen, and it's like a wake-up call for you to come back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to forgive and to be nice. And forgiveness is challenging, very, very challenging. So I hope that answers the question, inshallah.
So there's a statement from Ali ibn Abi Talib, basically the general statement is that don't raise your children like your parents raised you. So I was just wondering how we can ensure for ourselves that we don't make the same mistakes that our parents made when they were raising us. Because as you know, when the generations develop, the society changes, so the way you have to deal with children becomes much different than the way you were dealt with.
So what is the question?
So how can we ensure that we raise our children and avoid the mistakes that our parents may have made when raising us?
Okay. I mean, the number one thing obviously is to pay attention to what the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ says. That's the number one thing. Number two is because through those facets of revelation, through those revelations, you can begin to kind of get an idea how to raise your children, even if your parents did something similar to that, because they were following the Quran and the Sunnah, if it was a proper interpretation. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to take a look at the first three generations. How did they raise their children? And follow their example. And then the third thing is to just pay attention to what your parents did and take what is right and leave what is wrong. And obviously in comparison to the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And Allah knows best.
Would anyone else like to add on to that? Or ask a question in this, in regards to this specific question? Follow up maybe?
You know, there are 2 du'as about this in the Quran also, right? You know, the one in Surah An-Naml and in Surah Al-Ahqaf, you know, رَبِّ أَوْزِعْنِي أَنْ أَشْكُرَ نِعْمَتَكَ الَّتِي أَنْعَمْتَ عَلَيَّ وَعَلَى وَالِدَيَّ وَنَعْمَلَ صَالِحًا, and so on. I mean, those are beneficial, inshallah, to read as well. Yes. Yeah, just speak in the microphone.
So you want to hold it like
Right
Like
into your mouth, inshallah.
3 inches away. Well, if you're wearing a mask, I think it interferes with the wire. So you want to hold it like maybe like 3 inches away. That the wire, the metal in the mask might be causing interference. Is it green?
It's green.
So you want to give him ours and take a look at that one? You can just walk over.
You can take this one, sister.
This one? Okay.
So my question is that,
A little bit further away, just a little bit further away. Yeah. Yeah, I think I need this mic. And grab that one and take a look at it.
so my question is that, so here in the US, you know, there's like a lot of activities that kids do in the school. So it's like, so my mom is actually encouraging my little sister to play guitar. I don't know, like, my opinion was to not encourage her to do that, but I was like, that's just a talent. Like, she's not gonna grow and, you know, be a star in the future, but she just wants to, like, you know, support her for her talent. But for me, I'm saying, like, she might like to do something bigger in the future, and that might grow. So I don't know what should I do actually, because I talked to my mom. I didn't want to be rude, you know, but I told her, like, just don't buy her a guitar, please. But she actually did in her birthday. So now, like, my little sister owns the guitar, and she likes doing it, you know. I don't know if that's wrong or not. Is it like just a talent that we need to support the kid, or is it like haram? And I'm not really sure about that.
Yeah, you should not do it. That's something that's haram, because the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam forbade all stringed instruments. You know, there are hadith about it. So definitely, you know, it's not. I mean, you know, like the dua of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, Allahumma allimna ma yanfa'una. That teach us what is. Oh Allah, teach us what will benefit us. And this is not something that you want to teach the child, because it's considered from mazamir shaitan, you know, from the melodies of the devil, you know. So definitely, no, it's not right. It's not right. But the way to avoid this is to try to distract your sister by developing another talent in her that she likes more than the guitar. You know, maybe you know, karate, maybe sports, maybe art, you know, like calligraphy or something like that. Try to distract her, and if she takes up another vocation, then she will leave the guitar on her own. And then in the meanwhile, maybe you can have somebody talk to your mom, you know, somebody that she might respect, Islamically knowledgeable, and then they can, you know, talk to her. Sure.
So the next question here is actually, I feel like it's very much connected to the responses you were giving here, Shafii, and in many of the other questions. So somebody's asking, what should I do if I'm if I'm unable to talk to my parents and open up to them? So, like for example, in this situation, you said that we should take an opportunity to try to talk to our parents about this, you know, about them encouraging such a thing with our siblings. But what if there is some sort of a barrier, some sort of a struggle there that we're not able to open up?
Yeah, I mean, the al-asl, as we say, you know, the foundation of this is that you should always try to talk to your parents first. If it becomes difficult not to talk to your parents, then approach them through an elder sibling if you have one. If not, then through perhaps relatives. If not, then somebody who's Islamically knowledgeable who could talk to them. You know, that would be the best way. And perhaps, you know, bring them to talks or sometimes you might even be listening to a talk on YouTube that talks about that issue, and you have it in earshot of them, so that even if mom is cooking, but she's listening. So like in Arabic we say, Iyaka a'ni wasma'i ya jari, that I listen up neighbor, but I really mean to talk to you.
Meaning you talk to the person next to the one you want to actually
Yeah.
talk to.
Yeah.
Okay. Inshallah. I didn't know that. I learned something the other day. Alright? It's a good strategy. It's kind of like when you struck that advice right there, that piece of advice.
Right.
It's kind of like the advice that's given to somebody who's scared of public speaking, and you tell them to look above the heads of the people you're talking to instead of looking right at them. Like right now y'all can't tell if I'm actually looking at you. I could actually be looking right above your heads. Right? But it works.
Right. As far as the public speaking, just people should understand that don't listen to shaitan, listen to Allah. Because shaitan doesn't want you to speak. And did you just go ahead and because if you're doing it for the sake of Allah, you don't care who's watching, who's not watching. You just go ahead and do it.
So I think go ahead.
This is a different question. Could you hear me in this volume?
Can
Yeah,
y'all
yeah.
hear him?
Okay, people online.
Do you have a mic? Yeah.
So this is kind of like a question I say maybe a different order or so. But basically where I'm coming from right now, we have like a nice student magic community. It's really good. And one of the things that we're considering of doing is how to outreach into our school community for other students. We recently had someone who actually converted. It was the week before that we came. I'd say as far as doing that in our local community, to what extent, and maybe if you don't feel comfortable with it, consider this, you just let me know where it went. To what extent should we be, going on and doing those things? And I know that the response might vary community by community, based on those different things. Should it be more of a character approach, more of we're out there doing good things type of approach, come go with us type thing, or do you have any suggestions?
You're talking about doing da'wah?
Yes.
Yeah. When it comes to da'wah, brothers and sisters, we need to start doing it full-time, overtime. What I mean by that is that it's one thing, the character obviously is a given. We should have the character regardless. But part of that character is to begin to go out and not be shy about our Islam. Anybody that we meet, we should strike up a conversation with them about Islam. Try to have different programs. For example, have a program for non-Muslims that every month or every week we have this program that non-Muslims can come, just for dinner or something, and they can ask any question that they feel like, and have somebody there who can, kind of encourage them and so on. Try to put out little flyers, or on the social media, for example, put out little blurbs about Islam, so people will get interested. But the immediate area, wherever you are, if it's a campus population, try to invite people, try to do different events that would attract people, and then you end up talking a little bit about Islam, Sure.
There are two things I think I wanted to add just really quickly to that as well. The famous, now retired UFC GOAT, actually, right in my opinion, Khabib Nurmagomedov, he said, actually quite recently, he said something really powerful. He said that non-Muslims don't read the Quran or Sirah or Hadith. They read you, right? So you should be educated in the Quran and the Sunnah, so that when non-Muslims look at you, they learn the Quran and Sunnah by just looking at you, by interacting with you. So we have to become more knowledgeable about that so that we can embody it. And number two, there's a course actually that you can find on YouTube about that. Sheikh Kamal al-Mekki used to be the chaplain of the MSA at George Mason University in Virginia. You can look it up on YouTube, it's called a 10-minute da'wah, or like how to give da'wah in 10 minutes. If you look that up, it's really good actually. And it like gives you like strategies of how like very easily start up a conversation in Dar-us-Salaam with somebody who, you know, without like it being awkward. So there's one more question I want to do, and then we have to end. Because she has something else to get going. I'm scared that ego and pride is getting in the way of my relationships, especially with my parents. What should I do?
It depends on which side the ego is coming from. I guess they mean the parent side. I don't know. But let's deal with it on both sides. When it comes to ego and, she said arrogance? Or
Ego and pride.
Ego and pride. The thing is that a lot of the parents, you might feel that they have ego or pride because they're telling you to do something and you think it's not right, but they're saying that, look, I have experience, I'm older than you are, and so sometimes we interpret that as ego and pride. So if that is the case, then I would say don't interpret it like that, number one, but listen to them and see if it has, you know, your parents, you should defer to them because they do have experience and so on. But if they're saying something that's totally wrong against the Quran or the Sunnah, like, you know, the sister was just asking about the guitar, if it's something like that, then obviously, you know, you're not bound to follow. You should follow them. You shouldn't listen to them in those type of issues. But politely disagree. Politely avoid the situation. You know, like avoid the situation. And if they're asking you, for example, that you know, this is a situation that comes up quite often, that like if they're talking to a daughter, that, you know, talk to the guy. How are you going to know the guy unless you talk to him? You know, at least meet with him. I've invited them over, by the way, tonight. And so listen to that, you know, talk to him and so on. And you say to yourself, but I'm not interested right now. I'm not interested, and so on. So in a situation of that nature, you should be able to tell your parents that right now you're not interested, and maybe in the future you'll be interested. And if they say, no, I have experience, I know, then out of deference, you know, just tell them, okay, I'll meet them in your presence. You know, like mom in your presence and dad in your presence. Otherwise, I'm not meeting them alone, you know. And if they insist on meeting them alone, they say that, well, I can't, I just cannot do it. And just, you know, then you have to refuse, you know. So that's one thing. The second thing is, when it's ego and pride from yourself, there shouldn't be any. There shouldn't be any. Ego to us, brothers and sisters, should mean exalt God only, not edge God out. Okay, normally when you edge God out, you know, that's when you run into trouble. That's when you have your own ego. So we shouldn't have any. We should be humble and listen to others. Remember, that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us 2 ears and 1 tongue. And that tongue is between these 2 big jaws. You know, so yeah, that's what I would say. Allah knows best.
So we're actually going to stop here. Jazakallah khairan for fielding these questions and granting us the opportunity to learn some wisdom. This event happens once a month. Next month is Ramadan, so we're actually not going to do this, but there will be a weekly Saturday night youth program during Tarawih, actually. So we encourage you all to come share that information with everyone and your peers and friends and family. We're going to be doing that every Saturday night. The topic, actually, it's going to be a discussion based. It's not really going to be too much halakha based. It's going to be on the topic of perseverance. So various stories from prophets, messengers, and righteous people of the past, and how they persevered through some of the toughest, most difficult situations, and when we brought up, and then we'll have a chance to dissect them further. So that's in Ramadan. Once again, Jazakumullah khairan for attending. Please, next month and in the month of May when we resume, please come out and join us again. We have about maybe 12 minutes until Salat al-Maghrib starts, so you can head out. There is pizza and soda, inshallah, so you can enjoy that and socialize with one another. Once again, I hope to see you all soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.